Alcohol and driving have always been a deadly mix, but some crashes caused by it stand out for how disturbing and unforgettable they are. In this video, we'll look at 5 real stories of DUI deaths that go far beyond ordinary accidents. Cases where one reckless choice led to destruction, shock, and tragedy that still haunts people today. It was September 27, 2015 in Vaughan, Ontario, a calm Sunday afternoon. The Neville Lake family was on a simple outing in their minivan. Inside were 6 people: 65-year-old Gary Neville, his wife Nerissa, her mother Josefina Frias, and 3 children: Daniel, 9, Harrison, 5, and Millie, just 2 years old. Nothing seemed unusual that day, until they reached the intersection of Kirby Road and Kipling Avenue. At the same time, 29-year-old Marco Muzzo was returning from his bachelor party in Miami. He had been drinking heavily, continuing even on his private jet home to Toronto. Despite knowing he was not sober, he got into his black Jeep Cherokee after landing at Pearson International Airport. Later, he admitted he thought he could take a chance. That decision would change lives forever. Around 4 p.m., Vaughan Fire and Rescue responded to a major crash. 2 vehicles were wrecked: a family minivan and a Jeep Cherokee. Muzzo had run a stop sign driving 85 kilometers per hour, about 53 miles per hour, through a residential intersection. His Jeep slammed directly into the driver's side of the minivan in a T-bone collision. Inside the minivan, the family was crushed. Over 30 first responders tried to save them. 4 were resuscitated at once, but it was too late. 9-year-old Daniel died instantly. Harrison and Millie were declared brain dead and later passed away in the hospital. Their grandfather, Gary, was also pronounced dead. Nerissa and Josefina survived, but with severe injuries. Witnesses noticed Muzzo was staggering, confused, and unable to stand. He had even lost control of his bladder. A blood test showed 245 milligrams of alcohol per 100 milliliters, almost 3 times the legal limit. He was arrested at the scene. The crash made headlines that night. Jennifer Neville Lake, the children's mother, recognized her family's van on the news. Police took her to the hospital, where she identified her children and father. She had lost all 3 children and her dad in a single moment. The deaths shocked Canada. Many questioned how someone from a wealthy family with a history of reckless behavior was still allowed to drive. Muzzo had 10 past speeding violations and a 2012 arrest for public intoxication after a nightclub altercation. In February 2016, he pleaded guilty to 4 counts of impaired driving causing death and 2 counts of causing bodily harm. A month later, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison with a 12-year driving ban, the harshest sentence in Canada for a first-time impaired driving conviction. But for the Neville Lake family, it wasn't enough. Muzzo served his time in a minimum security facility. He applied for parole in 2018 but was denied. In 2020, he was granted day parole, and by 2021, he was fully released. After nearly 5 years of imprisonment, his release came with restrictions, but many felt justice had not been served. The toll on the Neville Lake family was unbearable. Jennifer revealed she had been pregnant at the time of the crash but lost the pregnancy soon after. Her husband, Edward Lake, sank into despair. He often spoke about living in a nightmare and struggling with his mental health. On June 20th, 2022, one day after Father's Day, Edward was found dead at age 49. Jennifer wrote, "My children's father, Edward Lake, has joined our kids so they can play together forever. Mahal kita, Edward." Mahal kita is the Filipino phrase for "I love you." Jennifer later created a nonprofit called Many Hands Doing Good to support children coping with trauma. Each year, she posts photos of her children's untouched lunchboxes on their graves, writing what school grade they should be in. After Muzzo's release, petitions called for the removal of his family's name from buildings funded by their billion-dollar construction company. But hospitals and institutions refused, even Sick Kids Hospital, the same place where 2 of the children had been pronounced dead. In a 2020 statement, Muzzo said, "I was careless and irresponsible. I will live with this for the rest of my life." But for Jennifer, the reality is different. She lost her children, her father, and later her husband. And while Marco Muzzo now walks free, her family will never be whole again. It was February 1st, 2020 in Oatlands, a quiet suburb in western Sydney. For the Abdallah and Sakura families, it was a normal Saturday. 7 children, siblings Anthony, Angelina, and Sienna Abdallah, their cousin Veronique Sakura, and 3 friends were walking to a local shop to buy ice cream. It was meant to be a simple outing, but within seconds, their lives changed forever. At the same time, 30-year-old Samuel William Davidson was driving his blue Mitsubishi 4-wheel drive. He wasn't just speeding. He had spent the day drinking and using substances. He began at 7 a.m., consuming beer, rum, vodka cruisers, and more. Toxicology reports later confirmed he also had MDMA and other substances in his system. Witnesses saw him shirtless, laughing, and making rude gestures out the window as he sped through Sydney's northwestern suburbs. He ran red lights, swerved across lanes, and even forced a motorcyclist off the road. By the time he reached Beddington Road in Oatlands, Davidson was driving recklessly. It was a quiet residential street, not a place for high speeds. But as he hit a sharp downhill turn, he pushed his vehicle to around 133 kilometers per hour in a 50 zone. At impact, his speed was about 111 kilometers per hour. He lost control. The car mounted the curb and plowed into the group of children from behind. The force dragged some of them against a nearby fence, spreading victims across more than 17 meters. 4 children died instantly: 13-year-old Anthony, 12-year-old Angelina, 8-year-old Sienna, and 11-year-old Veronique. 3 others were badly injured. One, Charbel Casas, fell into a coma for weeks but miraculously survived. Davidson stepped out of the car unharmed. Witnesses heard him mutter, "What have I done? I'm going to jail." Emergency crews arrived quickly, but it was too late. Within minutes, nearly 200 people gathered, overcome with grief. Police had to call the riot squad to control the scene. That night, Davidson was filmed shirtless and handcuffed as officers took him away. The next morning, cameras gathered outside the Abdallah family home. Many expected silence. Instead, the father, Danny Abdallah, spoke through tears. He described his children. Anthony loved basketball and wanted to honor Kobe Bryant in his next game. Angelina was his little helper. Sienna was the family's actress, always lively and full of energy. "These kids were just walking innocently," he said, "and now I've lost 3 of them." Incredibly, his wife, Layla, also spoke. Despite her grief, she said she did not hate Davidson. That choice to forgive shocked the nation. Davidson's parents said their son was a good boy who made a devastating mistake. Years earlier, Davidson's sister had died from cystic fibrosis, and afterward he turned to alcohol as a way to cope. "I hid behind the bottle," he later admitted. In April 2021, Davidson pleaded guilty to 9 charges, including 4 counts of manslaughter. He was sentenced to 28 years with a minimum of 21. On appeal, it was reduced to 20 years with a non-parole period of 15. While in prison, Davidson turned to faith, studying the Bible and attending Mass. He credited the Abdallah family's forgiveness for giving him hope. In time, he even met face-to-face with Danny Abdallah. They prayed together, and Danny spoke about each of his children. When asked if Davidson should remain in prison, Danny replied, "If it were up to me, I'd bring him out tomorrow. Justice is to have my kids back." In 2024, when the Abdallahs welcomed their 8th child, Davidson called from prison to congratulate them. The Oatlands tragedy shook Australia. Thousands attended vigils, leaving flowers and photos at the crash site. In court, the children's families delivered emotional statements. Veronique's mother said, "No court or sentence can ever compensate for what we've lost." Through it all, the Abdallahs continued to share one message: not anger, but forgiveness. As Danny said, "There are no winners in this. All we can do is try to find joy in the middle of pain." It was February 9, 2014, in Diamond Bar, California. Olivia Carolee Culbreath was 21 years old, a young mother from Fontana. Her son was just 11 days old. That early morning, Olivia made a choice that would forever change many lives. At around 4:40 a.m., she got into her red Chevrolet Camaro after drinking and drove the wrong way on the freeway at more than 100 miles per hour. Witnesses began calling 911, reporting a red Camaro speeding north in the southbound lanes of the 57 freeway. Soon after, the same car was spotted heading east in the westbound lanes of the 60 freeway. One caller warned that something terrible was about to happen. Moments later, Olivia's Camaro slammed head-on into a red Ford Explorer. The impact was so strong that both cars were destroyed. Inside the Explorer was a family of 4: 47-year-old Gregorio Mejia Martinez, his wife, 42-year-old Leticia Ibarra, their 20-year-old daughter, Jessica Jasmine Mejia, and Jessica's 80-year-old grandmother, Esther Delgado. All 4 were killed instantly. In Olivia's Camaro, her sister, 24-year-old Maya Louise Culbreath, and friend 21-year-old Kristen Melissa Young also died at the scene. Olivia was the only one to survive. Another driver, 57-year-old Joel Cortez, was caught in the crash in his Ford Freestyle. He survived with minor injuries. He later described leaving for work like any other Sunday morning, then suddenly seeing a red blur before a massive collision. His car slammed into the divider. Dazed, he looked around at the wreckage, metal, and bodies on the road. Unsure if he would survive, he called his children to say goodbye. Paramedics rushed in. Olivia was badly injured and taken to the hospital, where she was treated for weeks before being moved to the Twin Towers Correctional Facility in Los Angeles. News spread fast. People were shocked that a young mother, less than 2 weeks after giving birth, had caused one of the worst wrong-way crashes in California's history. Investigators discovered Olivia's blood alcohol level was 0.15%, nearly twice the legal limit. A 24-ounce beer can was found in her car. Surveillance video from earlier that night showed her at a bar in Fullerton. At some point, she got behind the wheel despite her history of dangerous driving. Her record included a conviction at 17 for impaired driving after crashing into a pole. Her license had been suspended multiple times, once for negligence. Just days before the crash, it was reinstated. Authorities had even warned her that another serious violation could lead to murder charges. In court, Olivia was eventually charged with 6 counts of second-degree murder. After years of delays, in May 2018, she pleaded no contest. She told the court she accepted full responsibility, saying she prayed daily for the victims' families and wished she could trade places with those who died. The families spoke of their pain. Mary Mejia lost her parents, sister, and grandmother all at once. Kristen Young's mother said she struggled to keep living after her daughter's death. Olivia's own mother said her daughter had always tried to help people and was now raising her son through jail visits. One attorney described Olivia as deeply remorseful, saying she often asked why she had survived. Still, the judge rejected a lighter sentence and gave her 30 years to life, 5 years for each life lost. The prosecutor added that despite her apology, Olivia's defense at times tried to shift blame. Outside court, Kristen Young's mother said she believed Olivia knew she was over the limit, but didn't think anything would happen. Today, Olivia remains in custody. She will be eligible for parole after 25 years. Until then, she lives with the memory of that night, a night that left 6 people dead and countless others carrying grief that will never fade. It was June 28, 2024, in Deer Park, Long Island, a quiet Friday afternoon. People were shopping, enjoying the summer weather and preparing for the weekend. At Hawaii Nail and Spa, about 43 miles outside New York City, the salon was busy. Customers sat chatting with their nail technicians, unaware that danger was seconds away. Among them was 30-year-old NYPD officer Emilia Renhack. She was off duty, getting her nails done for a colleague's wedding later that evening. Emilia had joined the police force in 2018 and worked at the 102nd Precinct in Queens. Her husband, Detective Carl Renhack, was also a police officer. The two had just married in September. Emilia never made it to the wedding. At 4:30 p.m., a 2020 Chevy Traverse, driven by 64-year-old Stephen Schwally, sped off the road, tore through the parking lot, and smashed straight into the salon. The accelerator was pressed nearly to the floor. The SUV was traveling 78 miles per hour, more than the legal limit. The car plowed through the front window, destroying chairs, walls, and equipment. Screams filled the room. 4 people were struck and died instantly. 9 others, including a 12-year-old girl, were badly hurt. The victims were Emilia Renhack, 30, salon owner Jankai Ken Chen, 37, employee Yan Shu, 41, and worker Maisie Zhang, 50. The injured included Jankai's wife, Wenjun Cheng, 35, Ana Garcia, 53, Nicole Miele, 54, Michael Mahali, 58, Carol Garcia, 23, Tony Sachente, 32, Crystal Rodriguez, 37, Nicole Sachente, 55, and the unidentified child. Surveillance cameras showed Schwally's movements earlier that day. At 11 a.m., he entered a liquor store and bought 2 small bottles of Montebello Long Island iced tea, a strong alcoholic drink. The cashier said he was a regular customer, often buying the same beverage twice a day. Afterward, he was seen driving recklessly around Deer Park, speeding through parking lots, swerving, and nearly hitting pedestrians. One witness recalled their mother describing the SUV as moving like a bullet moments before it slammed into the salon. Inside the car, police later found the empty bottles. Another unopened one was discovered in his hotel room. Schwally admitted he had consumed 18 beers the night before, stopping only around 4 a.m. When questioned, he didn't ask about the victims. Instead, he told officers, "I haven't broken any laws. Can I get my license back? I'm a Marine." Police noted his slurred speech, bloodshot eyes, and the smell of alcohol. His blood alcohol level was 0.17, more than twice the legal limit. This wasn't his first offense. In 2013, Schwally was arrested after crashing into a mailbox and later found asleep in his car with the engine running. He pleaded guilty and had his license suspended. His brother later said Stephen had a long history of drinking and driving, sometimes refusing breath tests. He described him as aggressive and troubled, saying, "It's like my worst nightmare come true. I feel terrible about innocent people getting hurt." On August 1, 2024, Schwally appeared in court facing a 38-count indictment. Charges included second-degree manslaughter, vehicular assault, reckless driving, and aggravated vehicular homicide. He pleaded not guilty and was ordered held without bail. If convicted, he faces 25 years to life in prison. Inside the courtroom sat Detective Carl Renhack. As charges were read, he broke down in tears. The woman he had just married was gone. The other families also carried deep losses. Jankai Chen left behind his wife and 2 children. Yan Shu had been supporting her sick mother and son in China. Maisie Zhang never had the chance to react. The crash left behind shattered glass, ruined furniture, and a community shaken. Online, people expressed anger and grief, demanding Schwally never be free again. Suffolk County's district attorney said Schwally had shown no concern for public safety. NYPD Commissioner Edward Caban mourned the loss of Officer Renhack. For Emilia's husband, her family, and the others affected, June 28th was supposed to be an ordinary day. Instead, it ended in tragedy caused by one man's reckless choice. Schwally now sits behind bars awaiting judgment. It was shortly after midnight on February 21, 2025 in Miami Beach, Florida. 19-year-old Gabriela Alejandra Rios Flores, an international student from El Salvador, was on the side of the MacArthur Causeway. Her Jeep Wrangler had broken down in the westbound lanes. A police officer had just helped her push it onto the shoulder to keep it out of traffic. Gabriela stayed inside the car, waiting for more help to arrive. Gabriela was a student at Florida International University studying communication arts. She had graduated from Escuela Interamericana in El Salvador before moving to the United States. Her life centered around education and creating a better future. But that night, everything shifted within seconds. With her were two other FIU students, 18-year-old Daniel Khan and 19-year-old Mudassir Ali. The three had just left the South Beach Wine and Food Festival when Gabriela's Jeep stalled. The two young men stood nearby as she waited in the driver's seat. Then a silver Polestar Model 2 approached. Behind the wheel was 24-year-old Nicholas Devin Robinson. Robinson had been celebrating his birthday at bars in South Beach. Police later reported that he was impaired and driving about 100 miles per hour in a 40-mile-per-hour zone. A Miami Beach K-9 officer who had just finished helping Gabriela move her car noticed Robinson's vehicle speeding dangerously toward them. Moments later, Robinson swerved. He struck a cement divider, then slammed into the back of Gabriela's Jeep. The crash was devastating. The impact hurled the Jeep across another divider, flipping it into the eastbound lanes. Gabriela was thrown from the car, landing on the road near the wreckage. She was rushed to Jackson Memorial Hospital's Ryder Trauma Center, but her injuries were too severe. Despite doctors' efforts, she did not survive. Daniel Khan was also hurt. His left forearm was broken, leaving him unable to stand or move properly. He later told CBS News Miami that he only remembered the car speeding toward them before realizing his arm was broken. Mudassir Ali, while not physically injured, was shaken and later said, "She was a very good friend of ours. I cannot process this. We want justice." Robinson, however, seemed unaware of the situation. When pulled over, he appeared confused and asked officers, "Why are you stopping me? It's my birthday. Did you get the other car?" Police noted his slurred speech, bloodshot eyes, and strong smell of alcohol. While in custody, he vomited and refused a blood test. A warrant was obtained and his blood was drawn on the scene. The crash shut down the MacArthur Causeway for several hours. Robinson was first charged with impaired driving and reckless driving causing serious injury. After Gabriela's death, the charges were raised to vehicular homicide and manslaughter while impaired, both felonies. In court, Miami-Dade County Judge Mindy S. Glazer called the case serious, pointing out Robinson's speed and confusion. She set his bond at $200,000 and ordered house arrest if released. He remains held at the Metro West Detention Center. Robinson's lawyer entered a not guilty plea, saying he is waiting for evidence from prosecutors. Gabriela's family in El Salvador is represented by attorney Jonathan Friedland, who also represents Daniel and Mudassir. He told reporters that this case must uncover the full truth and hold those responsible accountable. Police documents show Robinson had been drinking at a lounge before driving nearly triple the speed limit. Witnesses and surveillance confirmed the car was speeding and swerving before the fatal crash. Daniel Khan summed up the loss. "She was my friend and I lost her. I hope the state attorney takes this case to the fullest and gives us justice." Robinson now faces multiple felony charges, including manslaughter while impaired, vehicular homicide, reckless driving causing injury, and impaired driving causing serious injury. Sadly, this wasn't the only tragedy in the area. Just months earlier, FIU professor Toshimi Abejaniga also lost her life in a separate crash caused by reckless driving. For Gabriela, it was supposed to be an ordinary night. A young woman focused on her studies and future was waiting safely in her car after a breakdown. Instead, her life ended because someone chose to drive recklessly. The case continues in Miami-Dade County, and for her family and friends, the hope is that justice will be served.